Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
So welcome you all to SDP on object-oriented programming using C++. We have a resource person, ma'am, Harshitha Deepanjali, ma'am. I request Deepti to introduce our resource. Deepti?
Yes, ma'am.
Deepti, can you just introduce our resource person, Harshitha, ma'am?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Deepti from 4th Sem ISE. It feels immense pleasure. Harshitha Deepanjali, freelancer and an entrepreneur. Harshitha Deepanjali has done her PG, that is MTech in Data Science and Machine Learning from PES University. She worked with many NGOs, schools and colleges across Karnataka to develop the required application and softwares for them. And she also worked on Android development and different ERPs. Ma'am has wide knowledge in Android, HTML, Python, C, C++, and SQL. It's our honor to welcome you for the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Deepti. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti. Harshitha, ma'am, now we can continue the session.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So, firstly, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes. So when we are basically learning coding, I think the session should be a bit interactive. What do you people say?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes. So can it be an interactive session? Going ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what all have you studied earlier? So as Deepti introduced, I'm Harshitha Deepanjali and I basically work on IT sectors and also on different businesses. I'm a big entrepreneur and I'm here today to teach you a few basic concepts of C++. So before moving to C++, let me know what have you studied earlier and what is your prior knowledge with respect to coding? Anyone? Because you all are from 4th semester, if I'm not wrong, and so from the same class. Is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So can anyone tell me what have you studied earlier with respect to coding and what knowledge you have with respect to coding?
C language.
C. You have learned C. That is in your P cycle, I guess, or C cycle, one of the cycles. And
Data
what?
structures.
We have studied the C language, and in the 3rd semester, we have studied about data structures,
Ma'am, we have basic
stacks, array operations, and different.
One at a time, please. Yes, and data structure. So basically, you know C and data structures, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So what do you think? Today we are having many things in the system, and what is the leading languages right now? What we are having? So the language which is widely spread and widely used. What do you think? Which is the language that is widely used? So can I say it is Java or Python?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And we know that, so we are using Python today, and we are even have what is that? Machine learning and data science.
Java and Python.
Yes, machine learning, data science, and you also have big data. Have you heard about big data? Have you people heard about big data?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so big data is basically handling of data. So these are the leading languages what we have in the industry today. And irrespective of all these languages what we are having, why do you think we need to study C or C++ as the basic thing? So you studied C and now you're here to study C++. Later you need to go to Java and it goes on. So why do you think C or C++ is so important?
For development, application development, website development.
So website development and application development. Any other answers?
It's the basics to all the language. That's why it's important to be learned.
Yes, exactly. So, whatever we do, that is Java or Python or moving ahead, whatever languages you learn. So, C and C++ will be the base, has all the coding languages what you learn. So, it is very important to have the logical and syntax knowledge of C and C++. So, if you are well versed in C and C++, I can bet you can crack any language. Okay. So, before moving to C or C++, let me give you a brief introduction about how and why programming languages came. So, Manasa ma'am, can you just make me the host or co-host so that I can present my screen?
Yeah, ma'am, I'll do that. 2 minutes.
Sure. So before that, let me ask you, what is programming language and why do you need this programming language? So what do you think a programming language is and why do you need this programming language?
Hello, Harshita ma'am. Can you check one?
Yes, and now it is possible for me.
Yeah.
For application development and such.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. The whiteboard. Okay. So someone was telling for a development of application, we need programming languages. And that is exactly right. So let me give you a very simple example. So how does a bulb work? So you switch on, not the process I'm asking, like you switch on the switch, the bulb will be on, you switch it off, the bulb will be off, right?
Yes,
Bulb.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So moving ahead now, have you heard of IoT, that is Internet of Things?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, basically what IoT does is, so what happens here, instead of you going to the switch, putting it on, off, so it will be controlled through what? One single touch. Am I right? So what are we doing here is, we are making our job easier. Is it right or wrong? So instead of going, putting on the switch and all, we are just programming things to just switch on the bulb or do any other work. So programming basically gives us a solution to our problem and makes our job simple with respect to technology or anything. So no one knew that we would meet like this virtually on Zoom and conduct classes. So how it is possible? It is possible through programming and coding. So coding is very easy, guys, to be frank. But if you take it as fun and you understand it, coding is very simple. If not, it is the difficult part and you cannot crack it. So don't make it complex. Let us keep it simple and move ahead. So before going to the syntax or any other thing of C or C++, I got to tell you a few things. So that is So evolution of the languages, how it became. So what do you think? What was the first language we were using? Anyone has idea? Any idea what were we using before? So initially, I'll divide this into 6 parts, and initially the first one was switch level programming. So what are the two input and output that you have in a switch? It is 0 and 1, right? 0, 1. So there are only two conditions in a switch wherein you can either on it or off it. So what is this 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 called? Is it called the binary numbers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So basically what was happening is initially the programming was done using 0, 1 and 0, 1. That is your binary numbers. Please don't write anything. Do listen and understand first. And later I'll be giving you some 5 or 10 minutes to just copy down the things. That works, right? I need you to understand the concept and later write down things. So firstly, we were using this switch level programming or binary programming using the binary numbers. And this was a very tedious process. That means it was very difficult process, and hence we moved to assembly level programming. So have you heard about assembly level programming? So in assembly level programming, what was happening is there used to be a memory and a register. So we used to store everything in a register. That means like you people have your house and your house number. So you are supposed to go to your place only. So number 1 will be going to number 1, 2 will be going to number 2. In the same way, we would be having a register wherein we used to store the data what is needed, and things were going like this. But what happened is whenever we need to increase the length of the program, the allocation of the memory used to be a very big challenge. And there where we ended up in C. So there we came to C programming. So C programming is also known as structural programming. So what do you mean by structural programming? Anyone have an idea what is structural programming? So if you
follow some structures to write that particular program.
Follows the structures to write a program. So while debugging your C program, where is the error in your C lab? What you used to do? So you used to go from line 1 to line 2, line 2 to line 3 and find out where the error was. Is that right? If you have a syntax error, it would show up. That's a different thing. But if it was a logical error, so what is the difference between, so you know errors, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is the difference between syntax error and logical error? Okay. So syntax error means syntax, you know, as you people know, syntax is the common structure what we follow in order to write the program. If there is any correction with respect to the structure which can be corrected and shown up in your error window, then it is known as syntax error. So logical error is the error wherein there is some correction needed with respect to logic, and that won't be displayed in your error box. Okay, so logical error, you need to debug where the error is. So basically logical error is a bit difficult to find out in the initial stages. So what happens is here you'll be looking line after line in order to see where the error is. So even the execution is happening one after the other. So if there are 10 lines, first one will be executed, then is it the case wherein 10 is executed and later we come back to 2? Does it happen? 1 to 10, 10 to 2, 2 to 8, something like that? No. So what happens here is it follows a structure, that is first line, after that second line, after that third line, fourth line, fifth line. So execution of the program line by line is known as structural execution. Hence, C is known as structural programming. Understood? And here, what was happening is, so there used to be a problem when there were 100 to 200 lines of code when we wanted to execute everything line after line. So there where we evolved with the next level of programming, that was C++. So in C++, we had many greater features than C, wherein programming became easy, and also there was no need to write a program in a very lengthy way. And hence C was better than C, and it was also known as object-oriented programming. So later we had C++, which is known as object-oriented programming. And with respect to C and C++, there were a certain similarities, but C++ had a greater way of approach towards different application. And later, even this wasn't sufficient for us to write the code. And does anyone know what came next?
Java.
Java.
So later we had Java. So you may ask me, ma'am, we could have bettered C++ and use C++. What was the such a need to go for Java? And you know, when compared to C and C++, Java is a bit difficult also. So what was the need? So there is a term known as portability. So does anyone know what is portability in normal English terms? Portable, that is movement. Movement from one place to another is known as portability. So what was happening in C and C++ is, so we used to write a program, and if I used to write a program, let me take an example of A and B. There are two people, A and B. A used to write a particular program in C, and B has a different system. The program which is run by A, B wasn't able to run the same program. Are you getting it? Like I have written a 100-line code which can be run in my system, and the same thing person B wasn't able to run in his system because the environments were totally different one compared to what A is having and what B is having. So what we did is, in Java, we came up with a concept known as compiler. So compiler is a application which can be installed to your system. So for example, let me take A is having Windows and B is having MacBook. So here, totally different. So A is having a different software or iOS, and B is having a different thing. So what A and B does is, even A installs a compiler to his system, that is the Windows system, and even B installs a compiler to his system, that is the MacBook system. So when a code is written and run in the same compiler, even A was able to run the same code and even B was able to run the same code. And this was with respect to n number of people. The code written by any one person, well, any person having the compiler could run the same code. So this was the major advantage with respect to Java, which wasn't available later in, not now, or in earlier stages. It wasn't possible with respect to C and C++, but it was possible with respect to Java. Did you people understand this? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So there was another factor which I could say which made Java really famous, that is www. That is your World Wide Web or Internet. So if you look into the date things, both Java and Internet flourished in the same era or the same year, I can see. And all the internet based. So when it is internet, so by default, you know, there will be two things. One, you'll be having server, and with respect to server, you'll be having one is the client side server, and another will be the service provider side server. And all these programs were easier in Java and could be run in any environment. So Java became more flourishing and popular at that time. So this is one of another factor which made Java famous. And lastly, and now we are here in Python. So Python, I can say it is so as I told you, C and C++ are the base for all the languages. Python, I can say it's just a creamy layer which is present on the surface. The whole Python coding is developed using C++. So all the internal functioning of the Python is done using C++. Only the upper layer will be having different syntax with respect to Python, and that is done using the Python code. And why Python is so famous irrespective of all the factors? To be frank, when compared to all this, Python is very slow. Execution, you'll not be having any gaming companies which will be using Python, because in gaming companies, in gaming what happens? Things need to be very quick, right? So in gaming companies, what happens is you don't take Python because Python is very slow in functioning. So you may ask me, ma'am, Python is very slow in functioning. So what is the need of using Python? It is user friendly. User friendly, and it is very easy to understand, and the syntaxes are also very easy to call up, and that's the reason Python has become very famous, irrespective of the disadvantage that it is slow in nature. So it is a very user friendly language which is used, and these are the different evolution of the languages what we have. So any doubts in it?
No, ma'am.
Okay, can you please copy down these things so that we can move ahead? Done? Shall we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No. So next, let me give you a few things. Have you heard of these terms? Text editor and IDE. Have you heard of these terms by any chance? So basically, text editor and IDE are the different, these are the different things which are used to run the code. So text editor, as the name suggests here, so basically text editor will be a small desktop application which you can install in your computer, wherein you can run your code and execute them. And even IDE is known as Integrated Development Environment. integrated development environment. Even here what happens is you can install the IDEs required and you can run your code. So you may ask me, Mom, then like we have a text editor wherein we can run the code. We have an IDE wherein we can run the code. So what is the difference between this text editor and IDE? Or what is the need of using a text editor differently or an IDE differently? So when it comes to text editor, do listen carefully on this. So in text editor, what happens? So you're having many languages. You have C, you have C++, you have Java, you have HTML, CSS, and different languages. So in text editor, you can run the code of whichever language you want. And in IDE, so as the name suggests, it's an integrated development environment which will be developed for a particular language. So have you people heard about Android Studio? So Android Studio is an application wherein you can develop Android application. So it is majorly developed for Android only. In that case, it will be an integrated development environment. So have you worked on Notepad or Notepad++? There you can just type or you can code, you can edit the code. So those things are known as text editors. Understood? Need out? Okay.
No, ma'am.
So next we are having another two terms, that is compiler and interpreter. So what happens when you just write the code in any text editor or an IDE and run them? If there is an error, what happens? So the error will be popping up on a window, right? So you'll be compiling. Have you heard this word compiling?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so what is this compiling basically? So you'll write your code and later you'll compile your code. So what is this compile? And the compiling is done
Testing for the code.
Okay, testing for the code. So basically what happens here is the system will be converting the code what you have written into a machine level coding which can be understood by the machine. And later what happens? So it will test and give you the output where it has been right or where it has been wrong. So this process is known as compiling and the thing which does is known as compiler. So then what is interpreter? So the compiler and the interpreter does the same thing. So both checks for the code fitment, that is whether the code is right or wrong, that kind of. So what happens in interpreter is, if you have observed, if you are having 5 errors in your C, what you have done, then the output will be like, so error. So this error, error A, B, error C, error D. So it will not specify anything about the error. So where it is or something like that. So in compiler, what happens if you have written a 10-line program, the whole 10-line program will be converted at once and it will be checked. But what happens in interpreter is, if you are having 10 lines, then each line will be checked individually. So like the structural programming what we learned, so error compiling will be happening in that way. So line number 1 will be checked for the error, line number 2 will be checked for the error, and you can see that it will be given as in the particular line 7, the 7th point is having an error. So this happens with respect to the interpreter. In compiler, on whole, everything will be compiled and the error will be given as a bunch. In interpreter, what happens? Each and every line is checked and in which line, which error is coming up, that is shown. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So these are the basic terms which you need to know. So when, for example, taken code of C++ which you are having, that is maybe you are having a 10 or 15 line code. So where can you run it? So you can run it in a text editor or in a IDE. Where can you run it? So is it an IDE? So can't we run our code in a text editor? So
We can.
yes. Someone told something.
We can, ma'am.
We can run. So can't we? So according to you, we can run in text editor and not in IDE, is it, or in both? How is it? Is it the only text editor where we can run the code, or both text editor and IDE where we can run the code? So
IDE we can run the code, ma'am, in IDE.
Okay, according to you, we can't run it in text editor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it is wrong actually. We can run our code in both text editor and the IDE. The thing is, in text editor, you can run even the different codes. In IDE, you'll be running the same codes. That's it. So in Android, you'll be using Android. If you have something called Eclipse, you'll be running C++, or you people may be aware of Turbo C. So in Turbo C, that is an IDE wherein you can run your C and C++ program. So basically, you can run your code in both text editor and IDE. Depending upon the code, you need to include some packages and run it accordingly. Even the debugging of errors can be done using the compiler and the interpreter. But here you need to know the difference, wherein compiler gives the errors in bulk and the interpreter executes each and every line and the error will be given. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So next, so let's come to C now, C++ now. So basically we are having, so when we are studying C++, so we need to know two things. So the first thing, what is C++ all about? And secondly, why do we need C++? So what is C++ and why do we need C++? So basically, C++ is used to create high performance application. So I told you these are the basic for all the things, and in order to have high performance, we need C and C++ basically. So to give high performance applications, we need C++. And also, in order to have high level control towards the programming. So in order to have applications or anything which is having high performance, we need to use C++. And also in order to have high level control over the program what we are writing. So what happens if we don't have control over the program? So we will never get to know where the program is starting or where the program is ending or what is happening. So in order to have that high level control towards the program, we can have this C++. And why do we need this C++ only? So as I only already told you, we have C, we have Java, we have Python. So we have all those different languages. And why do we have to use only C++? So basically, C++ is low cost. When compared to all the things what we have, it is a low cost application. If you want an application to be developed in C++, then it will be low cost when compared to all the other application. And they are used in most of the operating systems today. So the operating systems or the embedded systems what we use today is having C++. So the best example here what I could give is, as I already mentioned you, so Python, when we come to Python, Python is only the creamy layer and the complete structuring of the Python is done using C++. In the same way, the basic building of many operating system and the embedded systems are done in C++, and that's the reason why C++ is widely used even today. So you can just note down these points. So I hope everyone have internet connection, right? And laptops.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So lastly, we'll see to another simple concept, that is, so now we have say C and you have C++ and you have Java. So can anyone tell me the difference between these three? So according to what you have learned till now, can anyone mention any of the difference between these things? So
These are file extensions, ma'am.
Yes?
File extensions.
File extensions. Okay, these are not file extensions. Just to like give you a difference, I have written this. That's it. Okay. So let me go ahead. So from where did this C come from? So before C, what was the thing? We used to deal with what kind of language before C? That is assembly level language. Yes. So for C, the base is assembly level language. For C++, the base is C. And Java, the basic is C++. So this is the first thing. And secondly, number of keywords. So what do you mean by keywords? Keywords used. So have you heard of this word keyword?
Predefined words, ma'am, which cannot be changed.
Yes. So those are the predefined words which cannot be changed. And in C, it supports 32 keywords, and in C++ it supports 63 keywords, and in Java it supports 50 keywords. Understood? And if you remember, in your C programming language, you used to write this #include. Do you remember?
Yes, ma'am.
The first thing what you used to write in the program was #include. So we are including a certain files using this particular keyword. So in the same way, in your C++, you'll be using header files. Header files. So, but what happens in Java is you don't use any of these header files or #include files. You'll be importing certain packages. So these are the predefined packages which you'll find on internet or in the IDEs themselves. So if you go to IDE, you can install them through IDE also. And what happens here is you'll be installing the packages and you'll not be having any kind of header or #include files. And I told you about the compiler and the interpreter, right? So in C, you'll be having only the compiler. In C++ also, you'll be having only the compiler. But what happens in Java is you'll be having both compiler and interpreter. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, and nextly, I told you it is a object-oriented program. So, in C, it is a basic language, and in C++, it is a object-oriented programming language with some basic. But what happens in C++ is it's completely a object-oriented programming. So we don't have any other things over here. We'll be having only object-oriented programming. So these are the few differences between the C, C++, and the Java program. You can just copy down. We'll move to the programming now. So I think you're clear with the four concepts what I taught you. So firstly, the evolution of the languages where we had the 6 evolution, then the two terms which are very important, the text editor IDE and the compiler and the interpreter. Then what is C++ and why do we need this C++? And later, the basic difference between the C, C++ and Java. Okay. So now, so go to your Chrome and take a new tab and type online C++ compiler. Guys, wake up no. If you're sleeping, I do understand you had your lunch and everything happened, but I want your concentration here. Yes? You people are able to see my screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So type
Yes, ma'am.
online C++ compiler, and here you're having n number of compilers. So you can choose any one of them. Are you people able to do this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone, did you go to Chrome and you got the online compiler?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So basically you can see the options over here, that is run, debug, stop, share, save, etc. And this is your workspace. So basically the workspace is the place where you do your, there is a basic program which is given. So they tell hash include. As I already mentioned, so we need to include. So do you have any idea what is this IO stream? And firstly, this is known as this whole thing, that is include header file. Please make note of these things. So someone may ask you, so what is this called? So it is a header file library. So here I stands for input and O stands for output. So basically what we are doing here, we are streaming the input and output. That is, we are letting the input in and taking out the output. Understood? So make a note of it here. That is a header file library, the whole thing. And here I stands for input, O stands for output, and the streaming happens wherein we let the input in and become the output. And secondly, we are having the second line you can see using namespace STD, standard. STD stands for standard. This tells us so we can use any names for the objects and the variables which we take up. So names for the objects and variables. So if we give it as A, B or C or D, so we can give any name to the thing using standard library. And later we are having int main. So this is termed as the main function. So this is termed as the main function. And you can observe here we are having two curly braces. So one is starting and one is ending. And any code you have to write and execute, you are supposed to write within these curly braces only. Understood? And here we are taking a simple statement wherein they are telling C out is hello world. I'll explain you what this is and return to 0. So what happens when you run this program? So you got the word, you got the output as hello world. So what we are doing here using the C out, we are trying to print the statement hello world. So you can ask me, ma'am, you added something here, which is main function, but there is no any error or execution of this particular thing in the output. How is it possible? So have you people heard about comments? So we can comment in between the things. So here we are having two types of comments. So one is single line comment, which can be written using these two slashes, and the next one is multi-line comment. So which can be used using a slash and a star. So one is a single line comment. If you want to comment a single line, you can use this. And the next one is the multi-line comment. If you want to comment on multiple lines, you can use this. So this you can use anywhere in the program, in between the program, starting of the program, ending of the program. Anywhere you can use. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So next I told you, so is the structure, the main basic syntax of the C++ clear to you? So first, when you are writing a program, what you do is you include the IO stream, that is your header file, and you use the using namespace standard in order to take the standard library, and later you'll be using int main, wherein within the curly braces you'll be having different type of code what you need. This much is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you have any doubts, you can ask.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Harshita, ma'am.
Yes.
Just a second, we will just have to take a snap. So I want 2 minutes so that students will switch on their video and we will take a snap there.
Okay.
Okay. Can you also switch on the ma'am? Switch on your
Yes.
video if you don't mind. Yeah.
are you done, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can start.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I think my screen is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically, when we are so as the header file tells, we are basically dealing with input and output. So the two major things, what is important here is taking out the output, giving the input. So this is the basic syntax wherein you use for taking the output. So what is C out doing here? So C out. So if I run this, I'm getting hello world Harshitha Deepanjali. So what is happening here? It is similar. Is it similar to your printf statement what you were using?
Yes, ma'am.
So let me show you that. So is this similar, your printf statement and your count, C out?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
right? So you can see here, so here I'm having hello world, but I don't have a space here. It is immediately after D I have H, and here immediately after I am having A. So what should be done here?
Slash n for next line and slash t for space.
Slash N. Is it right?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you people just try it out? I know printf is a what? Printf is you're used to it, but I want you to people to try C out first. Because I want this to be a hands-on session and not wherein I just keep on telling you people and you just listen and go and forget everything. So I want you to open this online compiler and try to print something using C out first. And let me know once you're done. And I want everyone to try it out, wherein you can share the file later to your mom of each day's workshop. Just look into the syntax over here and type in there. Finish.
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So, are you finding it easy or difficult right now? Easy to understand the concepts?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So here, I told you that you are using this particular line. So instead of this particular line, you can use this. So So you can use std double colon and continue with your print statement, and this will be equivalent to the line which we're using here. So this equals this. So both the syntax are same, but in a different manner. Here I'll be using std with a double colon, but here I'll be using namespace std. Both have the same syntax. Understood? And that's the next thing. So next, I want you to understand. So you'll be aware of these things. So integer, float, double